the shout right there. All right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, if you do or don't know, I am Ryan with the Sports Carnage podcast that Detroit Sports Nation hosts, and we put one out every single Thursday. We had one last Thursday. If you haven't checked it out, definitely go and do that for us and for you as well, because it's a good listening experience. So if you guys have joined us before, you know, obviously we usually do the Piston post-game recaps. With this game, though, it's a little bit different because there's not a lot to go on. None of the young guys really look good. Whether it was Bruce Brown looked okay, but Sekou Doumbouya, Sima Hailuk, Christian Wood, nobody really stepped up tonight, and you had just a really kind of bad effort from the Pistons. And I don't know if it's stemming from the Kobe Bryant tragedy that has seemed to rock the NBA world and has really even kind of dominated just outside of the realm of sports highlights. And rest in peace, of course, to Kobe Bryant, his daughter, the other 7 people that were on that plane. Praying condolences to all the families involved who lost somebody, which was is just so tragic. And as far as the Pistons and Cavs go, that's probably the most notable thing about this game specifically, is not only did they do the 8-second backcourt and then the 24-second shot clock violation to honor the two numbers, that Kobe wore to begin this game. The Pistons came out in their warm-ups, and all of their jerseys either had 24 or 8, and they said Bryant on the back. So that was a pretty cool gesture by the Pistons, and it's one of the more unique ones in the NBA, which is cool too, that they weren't necessarily trying to honor Kobe the way that really everybody else was. And speaking of, Kobe played his career for his entire career with the Los Angeles Lakers, and there was an erroneous trade rumor about Derrick Rose to the Lakers for like Alex Caruso and a second-round pick and salary filler or something like that. Now, all right. Now the rumor was that the Lakers actually declined it and that the Pistons had offered it, which doesn't make sense on 2 accounts. Is the Pistons want a first-round pick back for Derrick Rose, and if you don't get a first-round pick back, or a young player, obviously, it makes way more sense just to keep Derrick Rose for next year. He only costs you $7.5 million, and having Derrick Rose as a mentor next year for any young players that you bring in, and obviously the ones that you currently have on the roster who are already developing a relationship with him, is way more valuable than a second-round pick that you're going to get back. Now, if you get back, obviously, a first-round pick or a young player, I don't want Kyle Kuzma, and the Lakers don't have anybody else. But, a young player from another team or something, that's where I think you give up Derrick Rose. And I figure that's where most of the questions will go today. And again, since the Pistons didn't really show anything, and there's not a lot to talk about with Sekou, who's hit kind of a rookie wall right now. He's had a rough couple of last games, and it's really to be expected. He was never going to keep up the pace that he started out at. Being just 19 and still trying to learn the NBA game, and now that defenses have at least a little bit of film on him, they're not game planning for Sekou Doumbouya at this point. But, players who are definitely going to be guarding him and players who are going to be seeing a lot of him at the rim or whatever, they're getting their defensive game film in on him and starting to, understand some of the tendencies that he's played with. And as a rookie in the NBA, it's just something that he's going to have to figure it out. And the one thing that I really did like tonight is that he played 35 minutes, which led the team. So Dwayne Casey, it looks like at least, is going to give him all of the rope in the world to, kind of figure it out and give him a longer leash than at least we've seen. The Pistons are, I think they're 3.5 games out of the 8th spot now after losing tonight's game, which is better because the further they fall back, you did see Sekou's playing time start to diminish a little bit when Reggie Jackson came back, and Thon Maker was playing well for a couple of games. Thon Maker didn't play tonight. Neither did Derrick Rose, Tim Frazier, Tony Snell, or Luke Kennard or Blake Griffin, but those you kind of obviously knew were already hurt. Um, as far as, his playing time, I think, and it's something that I mentioned, I think on the last video that we did, is as far as like the coaching staff, Dwayne Casey still probably wants to make the playoffs, and the front office probably still wants to make the playoffs too. So when they're only a game and a half back, and they had the game against Brooklyn, which I think at that time they may have been 2 games back, or a game and a half or something, where they can really pull within a game if they had won it. That's obviously not how the game went. And then it threw the Pistons back to 3 games out of the 8 spot. And, the further they drift away, the higher you can see, the higher minutes increase you can see for, Sekou. So 35 minutes tonight. Again, if they get to a spot where they're 7 or 8 games out of the 8 spot, out of the playoffs, which is what I think as a collective most Pistons fans want. I've seen some of them just on the Facebook Piston groups. Some of the fans want them to win, but a good majority of the fans want the Pistons to keep losing. So a good night, or a good night tonight for your tanking future. Keith Marcel said we should have came out wearing the 5-game sleeve shirts. Oh no, we can't do that. Even though I think it was during Kobe's last game at the last game he played the Pistons. I think they did do a little kind of joke at the end of his tribute where maybe they flashed the 04 title team or something like that. Justin says, did you ever see Kobe actually play? I saw Kobe play a ton. And one of my real thoughts 24 hours later, it's obviously a tragedy, not just for Kobe, for everyone else involved. His family that has now lost a father, a husband, and a daughter and a sister, and then for all the other families involved as well. But I saw Kobe play. I loved Kobe. And for me, not really growing up to see Bulls Michael Jordan, I got to see Michael Jordan when he was on the Wizards. There were 2 stars that when I first started watching basketball that I really, kind of fell in love with. One was Allen Iverson, and then the other was Kobe Bryant. So being able to see both of them for the duration of their careers, and really just what they were able to do, really once they kind of hit superstardom. Because I was alive when they both got drafted, but I was 2 years old in '96. So I started watching the NBA probably around 2001, 2002, right when Iverson was winning the MVP and right when Kobe and Shaq and the Lakers were winning championships. So those were the guys watching that I grew up that would have been my equivalent to, Magic Johnson or Michael Jordan or somebody like that. The first kind of true superstars that I was able to see in the NBA. And, even just loving the way they played, loving what they brought to their teams. When Iverson came to Detroit, because he was my favorite player, I was just super ecstatic about it. And then in Kobe's later years when he won the last 2 championships in 2009, 2010, I wanted Kobe to win those. I didn't like the Celtics, and I liked the Magic, but at that time, Kobe was close to my favorite player because Iverson was still in the league, but he was not as good as he had once been. So then you start to understand kind of who's winning and what they're doing, and Kobe's is going on all these impressive streaks to end his career, and then all the stuff that it seemed like he had set up after basketball made you feel like you were going to see a lot of him. Which is kind of the reverse of, and I keep going back to Iverson, but that's just the 2 players I always compared because they're my favorite ones. So as far as Iverson goes, you see him pop up every now and again, and credit to Iverson because every time that you see him pop up, he's not one of these old NBA players that is begrudging the game every chance that they get, or talking about how there's no defense, talking about how soft today's players are, how easier the game is. All of that stuff that you hear from these players who they sound, just kind of bitter and, really resentful towards where the game's going. That's never been Iverson's MO. He's always been hyping up the newer generations of players, the new NBA, and you can just tell he's probably more of a fan of basketball than some of the other old guys that you might see on TV. And Kobe was really the same way, except Kobe was a little bit more in the spotlight with, obviously he won an Oscar, which is crazy to consider. so shortly after his NBA career. But he was doing he did interviews, and then he's on Kimmel, on just like different late night shows, coaching AAU, so still very much out there and just kind of involved within the game. And then you saw him at a lot of games on the sides, and I guess you can with Iverson too, because you've seen him on a couple. But I don't know, Kobe just seemed like he was more destined to have a career after basketball that not only included basketball, but just anything else that he wanted to do. It seemed like he set himself up really nice. Albert says, in 2004, what if Kobe and Shaq and the Lakers never met the Pistons in the NBA Finals, but instead played someone else from the East, and Kobe would have got his 4th title in 5 years? Yeah, probably. There was, besides the Pistons and Kobe and Shaq themselves, nobody's really able to stop them. Tim Duncan and the Spurs did it in 2003, and that's probably the team that you would have pointed to that would have ended the Lakers dynasty if it wasn't the Pistons doing it. Was the Spurs in the West, because they had won before, and then obviously they had won after. And kind of during all the Lakers run, right? They won one in, what was it, 90? They won one in 98 or 99. No, 98 was the Bulls. So they won one in 99. They won it in 99 before the Lakers won on the three-peat. They won it in 2003 right after the Lakers three-peated. And then they won it in, obviously, 2005 against the Pistons, which was after the Lakers the three-peat as well. So that's probably the team that would have did it. I don't see another team in the East that year, though, because the Pistons beat the Pacers, who it seemed like the Lakers already had the Pacers number. And I don't think the Pacers necessarily would have had the bodies to and now that even like the Pistons stopped Shaq, but they were able to throw different bodies at Shaq that made the game a little bit harder for him. And I don't know that the Pacers would have had the wherewithal to basically just let Kobe shoot every shot of that series, which is what both the Lakers and even the Pistons have attributed to that finals victory. Was you kind of let Shaq get his, and then you throw guys like Eldon Campbell and Ben Wallace at him, and you really just try and make it super hard for Kobe to get going. And then eventually they knew Kobe would get frustrated and try and force himself to get going, and that's how the Pistons were able to win. But I don't think that Pacers team, who's the other best team in the East that year, would have been able to do that. Except they eventually, would have broken up, because, and they've even said that they couldn't both be there, and one wasn't going to play second fiddle to the other, and really, neither should have had to, because they're both so great in their own right, and they each went on to win a championship, after their time together, which really kind of validated their decision to split apart. I know Shaq wasn't the main reason the Heat won, but he was a huge part of that Miami Heat team that won, and probably a huge part of just Dwayne Wade's career and development in general. And then obviously Kobe won one, years later when he got Pau Gasol and Andrew Bynum, Ron Artest, and Lamar Odom, and then all of those guys. But those are my thoughts on Kobe. We'll be talking about Kobe on tomorrow's Sports Carnage podcast, and it's not like excited to talk about Kobe because it's still such a tragedy. But if it's something that you guys do care about, and then you're passionate about Kobe and the story, and you want to hear just kind of different perspectives and unify with people in your love of basketball, your love of Kobe, your love of the Lakers, whatever it is. We have Matthew Basson on our podcast, who is a lifelong Kobe fan. He lived in Los Angeles. He bleeds Lakers purples and gold, and Kobe Bryant was his favorite player ever. So I expect him to. He's a really good speaker too. So I expect him to give you guys something that's you can really kind of hit home on Kobe Bryant, and it's a perspective you get from somebody who, it's not Jalen Rose on TV, And I know those guys obviously have their personal relationships with Kobe. This is like a true kind of just 100% fan, reaction from it from a guy who, like I said, you can't underestimate, you can't overestimate, excuse me, how much he liked Kobe Bryant. The East in 2004, other than the Pistons, there's the Pacers, the Nets, and then the startup Heat. Yeah, the Lakers would be any of those teams, except the Pistons. But the Pistons beat all those teams. Except I don't think they beat the Heat in 2004, but you understand the sentiment. They wouldn't have. John said they should retire number 24 for all teams. I've gone back and forth on that. It's not something that I would mind. I also don't think it's a requirement. The best tribute that I've heard to Kobe Bryant, and I know Dallas Mavericks and Mark Cuban said they were going to retire 24. And if a team does it, I don't have any problem with it. If the league does it, I really don't have any problem with it. It's just not something that I think, this has to be done, or the league fumbled the situation or whatever it is. The best tribute idea that I've seen is have one team during the All-Star game that's coming up wear number 8, and then have the other team wear number 24. I think that'd be a really cool way to honor Kobe on a stage where, there's a lot of people watching, and a lot of the All-Stars were either, because a lot of them are still the older players. You have obviously like the LeBron James there, Anthony Davis, who, just seems like an older player now, but guys who have played, against Kobe Bryant. And then you have the younger generation, the guys like, Trae Young and Luka Doncic, who, who Kobe gravitated towards because his daughter did. And they had those stories where, her two favorite players were Trae Young and Luka Doncic. And the fact that both those guys are in the All-Star game, and had close relationships to Kobe, Trae especially, just with Kobe kind of mentoring him, the last year and a half that he's been in the NBA or so. I think that'd be a really cool way to honor him and, touch more of the players that had, kind of a closer, I guess, NBA connection to Kobe Bryant, either playing with him or actually having a relationship with him. Because as a young girl who loved basketball, obviously, Gianna was gravitating towards the young stars that she liked. So it's not like her favorite players, going to be Sekou or Luka Doncic or anybody like that. They're two of the rising stars in the league, and the fact that they're both in the All-Star game, I think it'd be a really cool way to do it. Evan Sharon, shout out to Evan, said true all-around amazing guy on and off the court. Yeah, I mean the one. And I think so. We're going to talk about it tomorrow on Sports Carnage, and I don't want to give too much away. But there's a lot, especially like after retirement. How you doing, Adidas? That you can, and at least that I admire about Kobe Bryant. And one of the other things is like he was such a champion for women's sports too. So he was in like the U.S. women's national team soccer games. He was, a huge fan of the WNBA and let people know of it, and is obviously probably having the 4 daughters that kind of influenced him, and realized, hey, if my girls like sports, and if my girls are going to grow up and maybe one day be athletes, if it's something that they want to do, it makes sense to show them, like what's her name, Sabrina Ionescu from Oregon, or WNBA legends, Diana Taurasi, whoever. It probably makes more sense to show them like that game as opposed to LeBron James or whoever on the male side of it. But he was always somebody that was really just kind of a champion for it, which again is admirable, because you've heard a lot from those female athletes that they don't feel like they get the respect, obviously, that their male counterparts do. And then for Kobe, one of the most iconic and dominant male athletes ever, to side with them essentially and say, hey, this is something that we should be paying attention to, and I'm supporting them, especially the U.S. women's team, because they're the best in the world, as he said. And then the WNBA players, I think it was a quote right before he passed. So obviously recently, he said there was, I think he named 3 players in the WNBA that he said could play in the NBA, and just kind of regardless of whether he believed it or not, or whether it's true, just kind of always giving that seal and stamp of approval to let somebody know, hey, I'm on your side, as far as the cause that you guys are fighting for goes. And again, that's something to me that kind of stands out as his, being bigger than basketball a little bit. But those are, I figured we'd probably get a lot of Kobe questions, but this was designed to do really just kind of a regular, or even Piston centric, just like NBA fire off questions. And I'm glad you guys have and have joined me for this. But regardless if it's Zion debuting, because I know we haven't done one in a little bit, even just how Reggie Jackson has looked coming back for the Pistons trade questions, Pistons draft, regular trade questions, Kobe, whatever. I'm all here for it, at least for another few minutes before I decide to log off here. But before we do go, obviously, again, just another plug for our Sports Carnage podcast. If you guys are watching this on YouTube afterwards, you can go hit the link in the description down below. If you're watching this on Facebook now, go ahead and click the Sports Carnage podcast blue description link that we have there, and follow us on Facebook there. And then from our Facebook, you guys can find our Twitter, which is Sports Carnage, or at Sports Carnage. You can find us on our Podbean, on our Apple Podcast. Again, just type in Sports Carnage and then see wherever we are, and make sure you like, share, subscribe, all of that. And again, it's a Zion 285 monster that can shoot. Yeah, I mean the one thing, and I'm a huge Zion fan. The one thing that's really bugged me about him, I mean, I watched every game of his because I want to see how he does, and I've been anticipating the return for so long. He's so bad at his free throws. But the first game to score 17 points straight in the fourth quarter from an NBA rookie, regardless of the hype that you get, regardless if you're the number 1 pick or not, that's insane. It was 17 points in like a 3.5 minute stretch is good for anybody. Like if Damian Lillard did that, it'd be leading Sports Center. If LeBron James did that, it leads Sports Center. Obviously, Zion was going to lead Sports Center, no matter what. But for any basketball player to do that in a 3.5 minute stretch it's so incredible to do, especially in your first game. And one of the things that's impressed me kind of the most is he looks fairly poised out there. I know the first game he had a couple bad turnovers, and it just seemed like he was trying to dribble straight into people and not around them, and it was frustrating. And then obviously the fourth quarter happened, and it made you forget about everything that happened in the first 3 quarters. But other than that, he really doesn't look out of place, and his field goal percentage is sky high. One of the biggest reasons is, and I don't know if there's a stat for this, but as obviously a very small sample size for him too, he gets so many of his own misses because he takes a lot of shots close to the rim. That's where he's the most effective, and you really can't stop him from getting down there. So even if he misses the shot close to the rim, he's usually in position to grab it and then put it back in right away. So even misses, a lot of the times they're not really misses because you get the 2 points either way, and you get the 2 points right immediately. It's just like he's kind of stat padding a little bit, or in a game, if he didn't grab his own offensive rebounds, he might have 8 rebounds instead of 11 or something like that. But it's really been incredible to watch. If you guys have had the ability to watch, watch Zion, and he had his 21 and 11 the other night, and again, just kind of coming on as a rookie. It's really, really impressive. Steven says that the NBA should retire 24 and 8 permanently. I believe that is also what John said. And again, just kind of echo my sentiment. I don't think it's something that they have to do. It'd be really cool if they did it, and it's something I would applaud, but I don't think that is, again, obviously necessary. I think, and if you weren't here, Steven, somebody had suggested on Twitter for the All-Star game, Team LeBron wears number 8 and Team Giannis wears number 24. I think that's something that's the best way that at least I've seen to honor him, because you make it, and Kobe Bryant was the star of stars in the NBA, right? So you have a night that's dedicated to literally all the stars, given the name of it, and then you have they're obviously going to be some type of tribute to Kobe Bryant at the beginning of the game, but just to kind of keep that memory alive throughout the entire game. And there is a little bit more lax defense on there, so I wouldn't be surprised if you saw some of the guys in the All-Star game try and mimic some of Kobe's signature moves, whether it's the fadeaway, whether somebody tries to recreate a dunk he did in the dunk contest, back in, was it 97 or something, when he was in it. So I think there will be a lot of cool ways that weekend, and even just definitely in the game, to kind of honor Kobe Bryant when you have more eyes watching than normal. It's a better idea than changing the logo. It probably is a better idea than changing the logo. I did see one earlier on Twitter, though, which is like the Jerry West, how he's kind of dribbling the logo. It was basically a Kobe silhouette of him dribbling. It didn't look too different, and I don't know. It'd be cool. Again, I don't think you need to change the logo, but it's something that wasn't that drastic of a change, but would be a good way to honor him too. And then the person who, I think the person who tweeted it out, had pointed out that Jerry West has said that he doesn't want to be the logo anyway. So kind of, what a better way to pass the torch. But I don't think, again, either of those something that they have to do. I do think that the All-Star Game one is the easiest one that they can do. And I think, honestly, you would sell. So the argument against it would be like the jerseys that, I think they may already have on sale of LeBron and number 23 or whatever. I think you would sell way more jerseys if you had an Antetokounmpo number 8 and Luka Doncic number 8, and who else is in the game? And like a Kemba Walker number 8 or something. I mean, Kemba wears number 8 anyway. And a LeBron number 24, or Trae Young, James Harden, whoever. I think you'd sell way more jerseys that way. Way more All-Star jerseys anyway than you would in if you just had the regular numbers or whatever numbers they would wear for the All-Star game. But that is my favorite idea that I've seen so far on how to memorialize, if you will, Kobe Bryant in the NBA. And yeah, I mean, you'll see something really throughout the rest of the year. I mean, definitely they already postponed the Lakers and Clippers game. And I don't think they postponed any other games. They thought about it and then didn't happen. But you'll definitely get some tribute there. Any teams that haven't played a game either yesterday or today will undoubtedly do a tribute, probably the 24 seconds, the 8-second backcourt things. And then I expected something that you'll see definitely at All-Star Weekend, and then throughout the playoffs too. So, this entire season, more or less, might be dedicated to Kobe Bryant the rest of the way. And I mean, for me, somebody who's deserved it, because he gave so much of his life to the NBA. He was such a great player, and so many of these younger players didn't get to see really Michael Jordan play. So, and I talked about the beginning of this video here that Allen Iverson and Kobe Bryant were the two superstars that I remember growing up, because I didn't grow up in the Bird, Magic, Jordan, whoever era. I grew up when it was Kobe Bryant, Allen Iverson, Tracy McGrady, those guys. So, and there's a lot of players in the NBA. It's probably their main demographic now who grew up with Kobe Bryant as their idol, as the guy that they wanted to be like. The first guy, probably him and LeBron, who when they got on the court against them, they were like, oh my God, like I can't believe that I'm in the NBA playing against them. I was in the NBA before, but now it's real because I'm playing the Lakers and, I'm guarding number 24 or whatever it is. So he definitely has a huge impact on this NBA today, as opposed to a guy like even say like Bill Russell when he passes, none of these guys are old enough to remember Bill Russell. They obviously all respect Bill Russell for what he did, but nobody in the NBA today is actually old enough to remember when he played, which is what makes the Kobe thing so unique. Is none of those guys really all of these guys were around to see Kobe play and probably grew up watching him play. Would they do this same tribute for Michael? The NBA will definitely do something for Michael Jordan. I don't know that. I'm not going to say it's going to be more or less shocking, but Michael Jordan obviously still has, hopefully, a long life ahead of him. So, if Michael Jordan gets to the same age that like Bill Russell is now, when he passes, I don't think that you will see guys who are as broken up about it as they were, just really visibly upset with Kobe. And I'm talking about the players. When you watch ESPN and you see Stephen A. Smith and those guys, reporters who have reported on the league for 30, 40 years, and they watched all these guys play, it'll probably be the same type of emotion. But for the players, I don't think so, because they do have, obviously such a respect for Michael. But again, there's a lot of guys who didn't watch Michael Jordan play, and probably who never had much of a relationship with Michael Jordan, like they did with Kobe Bryant. And even if they weren't, Kobe's best friend or whatever, just getting that small piece of advice on the court. Say they played against Kobe 2 times in their career or something. After the game, he's definitely somebody that they went over and dapped up because as an icon of the NBA, and again somebody that they watched growing up. So just kind of being able to have that chat with Kobe. My guess would be he affected today's players on a more personal level than Michael Jordan did. But you'd see some emotion from Michael, and it's probably still like on a scale a lot of emotion. But I don't think there's anybody that could have passed that would have given the players that much of a reaction. I don't know that there's anybody that could have given them more of a reaction than Kobe did. Partly because of the way too. It's just tragic. He was young, and he had relationships with a lot of these guys. They played with them, or they played against them at least. And he was still, again, just around the game. And it sounded like he was giving players, advice. I know he worked out with Giannis a couple of years ago, like right after, Kobe retired. So there's, just kind of this mentoring aspect of him. Him and Kyrie Irving were really close, and they played together on an Olympic team, and then obviously they played against each other. But there's kind of just so much there in today's NBA, locker room, if you will, that was just kind of woven into Kobe Bryant. So it's a long-winded way of saying, no, I don't think the NBA would react the same way to Michael Jordan, and that's just the players. But some players would. Like I'm sure LeBron would, absolutely lose it, as well as other players too, and maybe they did grow up watching Jordan, who Jordan's just their favorite, and he's such an icon. They might be signed to Jordan, and things like that, because he still is an owner. So I think the NBA as a league would act the same way, but I don't know that the players' reaction would be as kind of as heartbreaking as I think we've seen it. I might be wrong, and I hope we don't find out. You know what I mean? I hope Jordan lives a very long time, so that you don't have to go through them interviewing players and coaches, and bringing guys on like Stephen A. Smith on TV. 2 hours after the news broke or something, and you can just tell like in his eyes that nobody wanted to be there. You saw Jay Williams emotional all day, Tracy McGrady today. Like it's a tough watch to see these guys, and you think these reporters are supposed to be, all professional, whatever. But again, they're human beings, and they had relationships with this certain individual who just, passed so tragically, and he's probably, a big part of their careers too, whether it's just reporting on them, interviews, and asking them questions, whatever it is. But I think that is. That'll probably do it for our segment tonight. I do appreciate you guys hopping on and staying with me, even though it wasn't Pistons related, just because they did bad tonight. But it was cool to talk, a little bit of Kobe with you guys, sprinkled some Zion in there, just talk about just kind of the different ways the league might react. This last question was Gigi on her way to UConn. No, I don't think so. And so on the Kimmel appearance, it sounded like Kobe said that she may have wanted to go to UConn, and I know they did him a tribute to her before their game, I think today, which was really cool. But she was still only 13, so I don't think she was. And it seemed like she was just getting into basketball. Maybe 2 years ago, I think, is when they said Kobe started coaching her AAU team. And I mean, if you looked at the tape, she had game, but I don't know that there was a set plan for her to go to UConn yet. Although, I'm sure we wouldn't have been surprised at all if it happened, right? Kobe Bryant's kid going to the most universally respected women's college basketball program. Will the NBA get any new expansion teams? I was going to end it, but it seems like I'm going to like this question. Will the NBA get any new expansion teams in this era and generation later down the line? Reason why I wanted to mention is because the NHL is on that with Vegas and soon to be Seattle. I do think the NBA goes back to Seattle, and they might even get a team in like Mexico City. But I do expect the NBA to expand sometime, definitely in this era and kind of in this generation. They're starting to reach out globally. I don't think you'd see a team in like Britain or Spain or something like that, but I can definitely see like a Mexico City team, maybe even Las Vegas. But Seattle, I hope they would give Seattle a team back. And I'm trying to think of where else doesn't have basketball. St. Louis doesn't have one, which could be another city. I think it's a Tennessee basketball team, so like maybe like a Nashville team or something. But I would say if they have some other things to it, but I do think that they do. I do think that they will have an expansion team and then just grow the league from where we see it today. There's 30 teams. I wouldn't be surprised if in the next 15 years maybe we get 32 teams like the NFL has. That is what we have. That is what we have for today. So again, thank you for all your questions and for real ending at this time. Again, Ryan from the Sports Carnage Podcast. Like, subscribe, rate, review, comment on our podcast if you guys have not. Definitely go listen to them. We're laying it down tomorrow, and they come out every Thursday. So make sure you're setting your timers for those. If you've missed any of the last ones, you can go to our Facebook page right here, Sports Carnage Podcast, right on Facebook. We post all the podcasts, obviously, that we do on Facebook, and then we have some other content on there as well. Twitter is @SportsCarnage, and Podbean, Sports Carnage Podcast, and Apple Podcasts is Sports Carnage Podcast. So you guys look us up there, you will find us, and then you'll be able to give us all the views that we absolutely 100% deserve. But until next time, I've been Ryan. Thank you guys, and I hope I sounded good. I had to get a new hard drive and plug my mic in. It didn't sound like there were any mess ups because you guys would let me know. But thank you all for joining me, and have a good night. And